Alrighty. So yeah, I'm John Sherwood. I'm doing a presentation on the economics of Ruby. If I can minimize that, maybe. There we go. So images, art, they're done by ChatGPT. Like that's not bad, eh, for economics in Ruby. Pretty happy with that. Um, Took a few efforts on that one. Yeah, not so bad. So hang on, three parts. So firstly, why I'm doing this talk and the sort of initial question that prompted me to do it. Then sort of where we're at, sort of going through the various, organizations and the ins and outs economically of how they work. And then, so what after that, based on where we're at and the question. So firstly, is a disclaimer. So this is a lightning talk. If you like wonder, like, I'm just all over the shop. It's 10, 15 minutes. So it's going to be pretty rapid fire. A disclaimer. So the best way to get the right answer on the internet is not to ask the question, it's to post the wrong answer. So this talk is probably very wrong, incomplete, inevitably out of date, and generally just going to have a whole bunch of holes in it. So if you just put your hand up, I will just let you talk, and you can say, John, you're completely right. Yeah, actually, and then we'll be good, and you can just go ahead. So that's Cunningham's law. So that's all right. So this is where we're at. Oh, sorry, the question. Are we okay? So I was sort of looking at like 2023, lots of layoffs, lots of sponsors disappearing, certain logos disappearing from slides and things like that. I'm like, oh, that's feeling a bit weird. Is Ruby okay economically? And so I'm like, okay, I'll agree to do a talk, just so I'll actually go and do the work to figure out if we're actually okay or not. So, no spoilers, geez. So here's what we've got. And it turns out we're a very distributed ecosystem, which means nobody has any clue how any of this stuff holds together. So like everyone has like their own sort of pieces and they sort of understand a few bits over there. Colby is part of Ruby Central. If you actually have questions that you want correct answers to, he's your man. But yeah, basically these organizations are sort of, you know, they work together and stuff, but nobody knows, like how this person's getting money here or how this thing's getting done here. Like it seems very, decentralized, which means I had to do a few fault calls. So yeah, this has been sort of cobbled together between like Twitter, Reddit, emails, phone calls, a bunch of other stuff, and a bunch of my own notes. And yeah, and these are the three main orgs, I guess. And then we've got like Ruby AU, which feels like a fairly big thing here in Australia, but it's just one of many like national orgs and like little organizations on the side. And so, firstly, Ruby Central. I'm not going to go through exactly what Ruby Central is because this Samuel Giddens did a wonderful talk that was actually like a proper long talk that actually goes into it really well. And it would just be, exhausting to do that in a 10-minute sort of call when it goes through everything. So just Google that or whatever. It's on YouTube. Really good talk going through every little bit. So you're just going to get like random fun economic facts. So this is interesting. Ruby Central infrastructure bill just for Fastly alone, the CDN is like $500,000 a month. That's a lot of cash. And they do a lot of stuff here, which is pretty cool. And 20% year-on-year growth even now. Like you're like, oh, Ruby's in decline. It is not. It's still growing and costing them tons of money. Then AWS bill, 20 grand a month. Yeah, it's like honestly, I've seen worse. Developers, 40, like each month I get a little newsletter that says, hey, yeah, 45, 55 grand a month, just paying developers to do work on Ruby gems. Yeah, so right. So basically they do Ruby gems, bundler, the sort of like hosting, all this sort of stuff. They don't do Ruby itself and they don't do Rails directly. That's the Ruby Central. They just do the bundler and the gems, which is still a significant part. So, and because of that, because this is a very significant part, and you kind of want it to be up all the time, they have an on-call shift, which, if you're open source and you're wanting someone to be on call, you probably want to pay them so you don't burn them out at the very least. And so they do 6-hour shifts around the globe. So they've got people in, I guess, Europe, America, and here, or wherever. It's remote. Then there's like this 5K for organizational stuff, like lawyers and payroll and all these other sort of things, which is why I can just lift their logo and just throw it in my Prezzo and they can, I know they can't afford the lawyer. So easy. They also organize RubyConf, which I didn't quite get an answer. If it's anything like the conferences I've heard of, they kind of break even-ish. Do you know, Colby? If yeah, you sort of run the conference, you get a bunch of sponsor money, you get a bunch of ticket money, but then it costs a fortune. So yeah, if it's from what I've heard about like Ruby Conference, some other fairly like, several hundred people conferences, it's kind of a break even. Doesn't make a whole lot of cash unless.
I can say that
Wait, say that again.
confident and to organize the two offices Ruby Central does.
Mhm.
Fronting that with powering, like keeping the lights on for Ruby Gems all.
Okay, sweet. That's yeah, all right. That's I'll add that to my notes. Yeah, this is just a lightning talk. This eventually is going to be like a full talk with like proper research. But for now, super light on. Oh. So now this is so you'll notice this is the outgoing, the two arrows going to the right. That's outgoings. This is incomings. So they actually Fastly is nice enough to just not charge them. So that's like $6 million a year. And I at the time I'm like, the are we okay question, and like, hey, I'm staying at a person's house and with my family and it costs $500,000, but they said don't worry about the bill. I'd be super duper worried that they say, you know what, you need to worry about the bill. But I asked them about that and they said, yeah, look, there's other options. It's been important Fastly, so we're actually providing value to them. And also, we can just move to Cloudflare or AWS and they'd hopefully not be too chargy. But yeah, that is a lot of money that Fastly is giving to Ruby. So if you're like me and have a decision at one point for your company to choose between Cloudflare and Fastly, maybe choose Fastly because they're nice to us. Then like AWS, they've got like a credit cap. And so every now and then they're like, sorry, we went over again. Could we, just make that go away? And AWS apparently is really quite nice. Datadog, there's a bunch of other services they just get for free because they're a not-for-profit. And, there's just some nice companies out there like Datadog. Also at AWS, there's a seat for a security person that basically does all the updates and things to AWS. That's called Samuel, the guy that did the presentation about what Ruby Central does. And why would AWS do this? It's because it's the second most popular gem, 10% of the downloads. It's like really popular. So that was interesting. I thought, oh, is that after Rails? No, after Bundler. So Rails not the most popular, which kind of makes sense if you think about it. But yeah. So that was interesting. So yeah, a lot of people use Ruby, also use Amazon, and I guess they're happy to pay a few dollars to help us out. So for the tune of what would be one developer and 20 grand a month. That's not so bad. All right, Shopify also throws a lot of money at it. They're one of the sponsors there, and they sort of help out by basically employing people who also do this stuff. So there was very few people who basically just get paid by companies to basically be like a fellow where they just like do code all day. And there's a lot of people there that basically hired to solve business problems, but they can also do like a percentage of their time, solving Ruby problems. And sometimes solving those Ruby problems solves their business problems, which we'll sort of get into in a sec. The German Sovereign Wealth Fund, of course. There you go. Yeah, fun fact. They throw money at this and said, yep, we will support open source because it's good for Germany, world. I don't know. Anyway, good on them. And then Sidekick, our pal Mike. So Mike Purnham writes Sidekick, and he's up there with the other logos. He's talking at like $5 grand a month to be one of the premium sponsors. And this is just one dude running Sidekick. Like he's obviously done pretty well out of it, and some people pay for it. But yeah, good on him. That's his money. It's just straight up. And yeah, the Sovereign Tech Fund. All right. So there's also, this is an interesting one I found out about. There's Google and Microsoft run this thing called Alpha Omega Linux Foundation Project, where they basically say, your security could be better. And you say, uh-huh. And then they say, we'll give you money to make it better, 2FA for, significant gems or whatever. And they basically pay for like specifically targeted security projects. So a bit of cash in there, but you kind of, something that's maybe been on your like issue list for 100 years, I'll just pay to do it finally. So that's nice. So that's Ruby Central. Then the Ruby Association is the one in Japan, where I don't know if it's exclusively Japan, but basically they do Ruby core. They do the interpreter and everything else. And this is where maths and all them come in. They've got this education part, which I haven't quite understood yet. Remember I said this talk is incomplete. This is the incomplete slide. I've been told they have some sort of education thing. And maybe they do. They also run Ruby Kaigi. And Ruby World, they have 2 conferences, which is kind of cool. Someone's been to Ruby Kaigi, have you? Yeah. Cool. Any good?
Yeah.
Nice. Is it in English or is it like 2 streams or something? Okay, sweet. What about Ruby World? Yeah, well, turns out that's a thing too. Um, and what's weird? Check this out. They have look at this Ruby World sponsors. There's like a zillion of them. They're like Japanese companies I've never heard of. I tried to figure out what Anpad does, and they seem to build houses or something. I don't know. But this just goes on for ages. They got a squillion these Japanese companies sponsoring this thing. And then there's got this one here. This is the Ruby Kaigi one. There's like a zillion more sponsors. Just goes on forever. Oh, cool. So, if uh, and then there's this cookpad. This was really interesting too. 2023. Did you know a lot of layoffs? Not so good, including these two people who basically paid by the cookpad company just to do Ruby stuff all day. I don't know if this is still the case or if they've one moved to that pad company, the other one, Nad, what's it called? Anpad, who I think is continuing his work there. But yeah, these two Japanese people that were just fully paid by this cookpad company to just do Ruby stuff. Um, yeah, and then it sort of dried up, but then they sort of I think landed somewhere else, so it may be okay. They don't tweet very often, so yeah, I think it's still okay. Uh, apparently Fukuoka Startup Hub apparently forks out this stuff. I tried to find some sort of proof of this. I just got told by this in a phone call. And their sponsors slide is either broken or at least like to get like a dig at society for not sponsoring them enough. I don't know. Um,
I can't confirm it's real because I've actually been.
oh, sweet. All right. Well, okay. It's confirmed. Yeah, I was like, all right, no sponsors or it's broken. Who knows? But yeah, so there's a little startup hub over in Fukuoka that, apparently pays a little bit. Like, do they actually pay money or do they pay like venue?
It's sort of like a the startups sort of that sort of like a bootstrap kind of organization that just helps that sort of be a place for resources. It's also really good for networking. It's right in the middle of the city, so it's like really good to sort of get the train from city, sort of like
But so they like Mats goes to that startup hub and just gets each of these companies to put in $100, and that's why they got like 50 sponsors.
I'm not sure the details, but it's mostly sponsored by the city itself. If I remember correctly, like Ruby Association comes in as well to sort of like come up with ways to make this sort of policy work. It sort of just lets them have a building that have resources and lets people.
Okay. Well, nice. Yeah. And they also do certifications if you want to spend $150 on the certification for Ruby, which does anyone have that certification? Damn. Oh, just a bit of context. So one of the reasons I asked if we were okay, I used to be a Java developer in the like mid 2000s, late 2000s, early 2010s, and they had so much money, like hundreds of millions of dollars went into Java and sales and all the rest. They just had like cash, like you wouldn't believe. And so like as a contrast, oh my God, we got people chatting. The yeah, like Ruby seems a little bit skint compared to that. Like, they don't have Oracle money or old school Sun money. Ruby comes a Mali. Huh. Well, there we go. Right. Okay. All right. So that was their incomings. Outgoings, Rails World. Oh, sorry. Oh, hang on. So over to the Rails Foundation, another one of the sort of big. This is the new player, just came out. Do Rails World and the Rails. So basically they do Rails, right? The Rails Foundation does Rails, and they've sort of like moved away from being just the DHH's project to being a foundation to look after it. And I think it's sort of based on when the same thing happened in Python a bunch of years ago, where the Van what's his face basically said, I'm done with leading this thing by myself, and you people can just sort it out, and they basically built a foundation and sort of do it by committee, which is maybe better. Who knows? So yeah, they've done the Rails World Conference. They got put it again this year, and then they did the Rails Goes Facelift, and they're presumably going to do other stuff soon because they got $1 million, and they get $500,000 a year, and you assume they'll do stuff with it. And they got they don't do personal sponsors. So Ruby Central, they do like personal sponsors. Like I think from like $25 a month or something. I can't remember. But yeah, basically people give money. Don't know. Yeah, perhaps. I should look into that. I've been doing it for like 4 years, so I got free back payments. Um, yeah. Anyway, they're bringing in some extra cash from these corporate sponsors, and it's the usual suspects. So you got Cookpad, good old Cookpad, they're still in it. GitHub, Intercom, Shopify, those things, big binaries, consultancy over in India. Hired someone from there. Good on them. Also another significant player. So this is outside of the three organizations. There's Heroku, where Mats is employed, where he apparently does quite a lot of time on mRuby, which is good for them, which is kind of nice. But they obviously sponsor a whole bunch of this stuff, so they're a nice player. Red Hat apparently sponsors two people to do JRuby, which I think is like Charles Nutter, who we might see next month, and somebody else. There you go. So there's money coming in there, which seems kind of funny. Like Red Hat's paying for this niche, JRuby, and I'm like, where that money could go, but yeah. Oh, good on. Yeah. There's been learning about this, like, what a great bunch of people. I just keep like, these people are so nice. There's Shopify again. Apparently they have a heap of people there who are awesome, as some of these names you'll know. And if Shopify probably, I guess, being the biggest Rails app in the world, and if Maxine makes Swigert really good, they save a lot of money on servers. So it's sort of, as I said before, it's them solving Ruby problems to help their business problems. And parsers, Darren Patterson and Raphael Franco, obviously, Rails people, very good for them as well. And obviously, so this is the thing, they solve business problems. It's not their job to just sit there and do whatever they want on Rails all day or Ruby all day, but they do actually have to do, businessy work at these shops. It's not just a fellowship. I did a bunch of digging around in GitHub sponsors, and yeah, so this is from their thing, $33 million over roughly 4 years, 5 years, 4 years. And yeah, like that's okay. That's across everything. It's like over 63 regions or something like that. So a lot of money coming in, but you think about the number of projects that get sponsorship. Like, you look at the sponsors for all like, core Ruby communities, even Mats, there's like, nobody's making job bucks except for like a few people, which I show you another tab. This guy wrote like a thing saying, hey, I actually made like proper like $100,000 a year. Like he actually, I guess it's more of a marketing thing than, appreciation. But yeah, this person's earned like $100,000 a year just of GitHub sponsors, like 230 sponsors. But I also found that you could sponsor. So there's Matt, he's got 56 sponsors. Probably not enough to pay for like a full-time, rent and all the rest. You can sponsor him for $1,000, but I wouldn't expect many of the people are. But you can also sponsor Curl. Yay! Like I'm a big fan of Curl. I'm a big fan of Curl, but paying $1,000 a month is like buying WinRAR. It'd be weird. Yeah, nobody has ever sponsored this before. Like I believe it. I'm like, wow. Like 62 people sponsoring Curl. Like suggested tier of $200 a month. What is like nothing wrong with Curl, but if I bought, I'd expect a T-shirt for that. Like, yeah. So that was interesting. So digging in there, like it's good cash money, pays for probably their hardware and a few other things, but yeah, this is not a way to live yet. And so are we okay? Sometimes you're not okay. These things died. Basically they've got cash injection, and I guess that was propping them up for a while. Then it stopped and they died. Like all these sort of other Ruby implementations. I was trying to find like a language that died, and I couldn't really. One that died for economic reasons. It's sort of it seems like if it's useful, people keep it alive, and it's that it can sort of jump up like that, where if people are getting more money, it gets more useful, and it can get less and less money as it becomes less and less useful. It seems that this sort of symbiotic relationship between like businesses and languages to sort of keep things alive. And there's also this thing. These letters sound like this in Polish. Roclaw apparently is Wroclaw. That makes no sense to me, but this is like what, as far as I can tell, like Poland's Adelaide, and there's like this, there's a Poland Ruby group, and there's this Wroclaw group as well, and it's like just punching above their weight. Like they've got like the independent little Ruby group is like really popular and everything, doing their own comps and stuff. So it's like this breakout group from like Polish Adelaide. Like, okay. You've been there? Is it like super Ruby? You go there's like Signs Ruby.
Sorry.
So, all right. So this is the thing about the Lindy effect. So things that last for ages last for ages. Yeah, things that have lasted for ages also last for ages. There's a whole bunch of graphs and stuff that sort of talk about the utility of things over time, and basically Ruby's here to stay. And just the way this sort of stuff works, it seems, It kind of just survives because it's useful to people, so they kind of support it. But can't someone else do it? Yeah, so everyone, it seems like this game of like corporate chicken where like, hey, GitHub, are you gonna pay? And Heroku's like, I don't know, are you gonna pay? And so eventually someone has to pay, and they're sort of like, it's people, the Ruby community being really good citizens. But I'm like, when things got skint in 2023, it felt like some people were sort of like just pulling a bit back. And like, so I guess that's where it comes into, like, this is in contrary to the Cunningham's law. If people are super wrong on the internet about this, and I know that because half of them say one thing and half of them say the other. So someone's definitely wrong on the internet. So anyway, good quote nonetheless. So I guess that's the thing. Of the three things, thinking about it, you can sponsor Ruby Central, or you can sponsor people on GitHub. And you could obviously, if you're at a company, you can basically use Fastly, or you can actually decide to use Rails and get that company to have a successful Rails app that and then incentivized to help Ruby and contribute. They could be the next sponsor. Or you could do like a lot of other people, including me, and build your own app that makes money. And like Shopify was built by Toby, who is now a billionaire. So he's pretty happy with that outcome. But also Shopify pays for a heap of stuff, including a bunch of really cool devs. So my favorite thing is the Ruby, like the very first version of Shopify. It's like ghetto as hell. It's just like a dev's written like a crummy, half-assed website. I'm like, and that's Shopify. And so if you can build a crummy, half-assed website and then iterate until it's a $1 billion company, then you can sponsor all this stuff. So there's those tabs that open, and that's the end.